All right, folks. So if you're watching this training, you are a student at Montclair State University involved in some type of recognized student organization. I know we have a couple Greek students on here who have to attend this training because they're going to miss the Greek training. So a couple things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about bookable campus spaces. We're going to give you a daily programming guide. We're going to define spaces for you, talk a little bit about room setups, talk briefly about programming, give you some reminders, talk about some campus safety, give you some contact information and some reminders of important dates. I do want to remind everybody on this call, you are going to need to you are going to have to, after watching this training, we're going to email you an assessment. You have to fill out the assessment. If you do not fill out the assessment, you will not have access to book rooms on this Thursday, the 22nd at noon. So, as we talk about spaces, so any student organization on campus who wants to host some type of event must formally request that space. We want to remind you that every space on campus is bookable, and we ask that at minimum, all spaces must be put in at least 2 weeks in advance. You may put things in 6 weeks in advance. That's awesome. 8 weeks in advance, but at minimum 2 weeks in advance. We do not want you putting something in for a week later and then wondering why you weren't necessarily something wasn't processed. So just know that 2 weeks. Is what we're asking for. And every campus on space is managed by a different person. And so that's why sometimes things move a little bit faster or slower. So we want to remind you that room bookings are going to open this Thursday, August 22nd, but classroom spaces cannot and will not be processed until after ad drop on the 11th. So that means you're going to put in a room booking on the 22nd, maybe for a university hall classroom. 2 weeks are going to go by. And don't come ask us about this because any classroom space we don't have access to even touch until after 9/11. We'll get further into that in just a moment. So just hang tight. We created this about a year ago to try to really help students better understand what it means to host events on campus. And so we call this our daily program. Additionally, you'll be sent these slides and you can refer back to them at any point. So we want you to keep in mind if you are hosting an event on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, generally speaking, they follow the same rules. So this means that the Student Center is available from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. The fourth floor is only available until 10 p.m. So if you're having a rehearsal up there or you're meeting with maybe an e-board, you can only have that space up until 10 o'clock. The University Hall Conference Center and lobby spaces are available until 10 p.m. on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. All classroom spaces are available after 8:30 p.m. So that means if your organization, you say, we want to have our general body meetings on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, that means you have to book it after 8:30. So if you all decide we want to meet on Mondays and you say, we're going to meet at 6 p.m., you can do that, but you're going to have to book it in the student center because classroom spaces are not available. So please, please, please take note of that. And that means no amplified music at any outdoor events. If you're having an event on Wednesday, Student Center, same rules, open 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Conference Center is available until 10. What makes Wednesdays a little bit different is that classroom spaces are available during common hour. That is 1:30 to 5 o'clock on Wednesdays. So if your organization, you decide, hey, we all want to meet at 2 o'clock, you can meet almost anywhere on campus. But again, we want to remind you that if it's not during 1:30 to 5, a classroom space will need to be booked after 8:30. And again, all classroom spaces come as is. So please keep that in mind and be accurate when you're giving us information. Same thing about amplified sound. It is allowed during common hour, but it has to be radio friendly. So that means no cursing, no swears, anything like that. Oh, I skipped one. Let me go back. So if you're hosting an event on Friday, Friday's a little bit of a hybrid. It works a little bit like some of the week does. So Student Center follows those same rules. But classroom spaces are available starting after 1 p.m. So maybe your organization wants to meet on Fridays. That's totally fine. There's actually more people on campus physically in classes on Fridays than there are on Wednesdays due to the common hour and some other things. So we just want to give you that as a little bit of a reminder. We know that space is at a premium, and sometimes it can be very hard to find spaces on campus. So Friday afternoons gives you a little bit of flexibility. Weekends, a little bit quieter at Montclair, but totally awesome opportunities for programming. And so student center spaces are available from 8 to 10. That fourth floor, same thing, available until 10. The conference center is available until 10 p.m. that day. Classroom spaces are available all day. You can have amplified sound, and it's available, but it has to end by 6 p.m. We do that in conjunction with university police because we want to make sure that, when it gets darker out, we're keeping people safe. So that was our kind of daily programming guide. We're now going to talk to you about some different spaces and what they mean. And so we call certain spaces, we'll say, are as is, meaning they can't be adjusted. This means we don't add furniture to them. There's limited technology, and they are typically spaces that don't require setup or breakdown. The first example I'm going to give you is some student center lobby tables. So there are a few different tables in the student center available for booking. The Quad has one, University Hall has one in Dixon. This is great for, maybe information tabling or just trying to network and connect with people. They don't require any setup or breakdown. So when you go into Engage and you maybe want to book a space, you'll see this here. So keep that in the back of your mind. Another as is space are classrooms. So sometimes we see requests come in where someone wants to book a classroom and then they're like, oh, I want a microphone or I want extra tables and chairs. Classrooms come as is. So you can ask for it, but you will not get it. If you find that you need additional stuff, then maybe you either need to find a different space or be a little bit more realistic in what you need. And so you all are students at Montclair State University. You're taking classes in classes, so you know what they have. But essentially, they're all equipped with the same standard technology. So if you want to, stream something, you can. Zoom technology is all available. Classrooms are really good for meetings, information, sometimes game nights, depending on what you're doing. Classrooms are, University Hall spaces, Dixon, Sell, Schmidt, School of Business, Richardson, etc. And they typically have, capacity of upwards to 40 people. So if your organization, maybe has membership that teeters around 20 to 25, it's a perfect opportunity. One plug I want to give everybody on this call, something to think about, is be really, really cognizant of the space that you're needing. Sometimes we see student groups say, we want to have 1070, this huge, huge, huge lecture hall, and then only 10 people show up. That can feel really empty. And so people want to feel like they belong, they're a part of a community, and the spaces you're booking can really help determine that. University Hall lecture halls, these are also as-is spaces. They can't be adjusted, but they have higher capacity, right? So maybe your organization is teetering on about 70 to 80 members. A University Hall classroom is a wonderful spot to be in because it's going to give you enough room. People can still see each other. Also has that technology. It's available for those larger meetings. And as an as-is space, you can't add any extra furniture. The next space I want to talk about is our student center dining room. So we made some small adjustments to our student center dining room. It looks a little bit different this fall, but essentially it has a capacity of 100. It's available after 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. You cannot move the furniture at all. And this space doesn't have technology. So keep that in mind. This space is not good for a dance rehearsal. This space would not be good. If you needed to move the tables around because you can't. If you move them, you are subject to a fine and you may have all your room bookings canceled. So keep that in mind as you're looking and searching for spaces. We can add technology if needed, but you have to talk with our office first. This space is really good for maybe like a banquet, or maybe like a game night, or smaller networking opportunities, but that is a space to take note of. As we talk now about customizable spaces, so some spaces on campus are considered customizable, meaning you can request furniture set up in a certain way that makes sense for your event. Our setups are always dependent on the space capacity, the type of event, and based on the number of events, there's a limited amount of resources available. So some customizable spaces that we want you to take note of that we're going to cover in these next few slides are the Student Center ballrooms, the Red Hawk Nest, the seventh floor conference center, and we have a new space on campus called the Underground. The Underground is going to be located across from the old Rathskeller, the new pub. It was the old print lab. If you're on the first floor of the Student Center, standing on the first floor by the elevator, it's right to your left. It's a great multi-purpose space that we're hoping will serve great purpose to all our students. Now I'm going to talk briefly about the different types of setups you can have in spaces, just to give you some context. As I said before, all of this information is being recorded and it's going to be shared out, so you can review these slides as you're going through the room booking process. So classroom style typically is what a classroom looks like, right? There's tables, chairs, and rows, great for lectures or meetings. I feel like somebody's camera is unmuted, so please just mute yourself. Thank you so much. Theater style. Theater style is a row of chairs facing the same direction. Depending on the space and abilities, you can maybe add a stage. This is great for like movies, guest speakers, showcases, bingo, or maybe larger gatherings. So that's what theater style is. The next style we call banquet style. So it's really essentially a mix of round tables with chairs. Again, depending on what space you're in, you could potentially have a stage if you wanted. It's good for food, game nights, informational gatherings, maybe networking, again, depending on what you're doing. The next style we see some people get a little confused about is conference style. So conference style is long tables and chairs set up in a square or U shape. This is good for really think about maybe the fourth floor of the student center. So maybe smaller, more intimate gatherings or meetings. This is a good opportunity for people to all see each other and maybe share information. So that's very common on the fourth floor. You'll see that. The next style I want to talk about is fashion show style. So fashion show style is very similar to theater, but there's a stage and a runway. This is only available in the Student Center ballrooms and the University Hall Conference Center. It is ideal for showcases, fashion shows, or maybe other certain sorts of performances. So again, we give you these as baseline visuals. You may want this in conjunction with some other things, or you may want something all your own. The last one we're going to talk about is pretty self-explanatory, but it's an empty room. So meaning if you're asking for a clear room or open space, this is probably for maybe a dance rehearsal, a dance troupe, something along those lines, theater practice, whatever, but it's really good for rehearsals, dance classes, or physical activity. And so we would strive to make sure the room had as minimal furniture as possible so that you can move around in it. If none of these setups align with your vision, then you need what we call a custom setup. This requires meeting with CSI in advance notice, and setups are always going to be dependent on the space, capacity, the type of event, and the availability. And so based on that number of events, there is a limited amount of resources available. If you need a custom student center setup, you can reach out to Sidra Habal. Her email is on the screen. And then if you need a custom setup for a different space, you can talk with Malachi Longmore. His email is also on the screen. And so this is some important information we want to make sure you're aware of. I know I'm talking very fast, but I really want to make sure we get you this information. And then, like I said, you'll be able to watch this back whenever you'd like. But we want to give you some information about some frequent programming reminders. So if you're planning an event that needs paint, it cannot take place in a space that has carpeting. You need to make sure you try to protect that furniture. Another reminder we want to give you is you cannot occupy spaces after your requested time. Space is an absolute premium on campus, and so sometimes we see student groups who maybe will linger or loiter around a space. You need to really, really be cognizant of who's coming in and out, because if you're in a classroom space, there might be a professor getting in there after you. So keep that in mind. And also your general body meetings are considered events. So you treat them the same way in the event request process. There are a number of things our office does not allow because we want to keep you safe. Safety will always be CSI's number one priority. We reserve the right to deny any event that is deemed inappropriate or dangerous. And sometimes events can be canceled if policies change. On the screen, you can see a list of certain programs that we no longer offer. We don't allow any type of eating or drinking contests, mostly because we want to keep you safe. Great. Somebody needs to mute their camera. Thank you. We don't allow any type of smash events or rage rooms. We actually worked extensively with CAPS, and CAPS felt that this is not breaking a plate or smashing a car is not a healthy way to get out feelings. And so we don't allow for any of those. We don't allow water pong on campus. We also don't allow balloon or lantern releases, nor do we allow 5K runs. If you were part of an organization that maybe wanted to run around the quad, that's a different story. But we don't allow like color runs or campus-wide runs like that because it's too much of a strain on the university resources. And just as a general programming reminder, we don't allow programs that have fog machines, glitter, candles, confetti, or foam, as they create tons of mess, can set off the fire alarms. And glitter, y'all, is just the devil. Some information about food at events. So the university has a contract with Gourmet Dining Services. So any request including food has to start with Gourmet Dining Services. Gourmet Dining has what we call a right to refusal. So if Gourmet Dining cannot provide you with what you need, maybe it's an hours constraint, maybe it's a menu thing, you have to still go to them first, and then they will let you know if they can or cannot accommodate you. Any outside food has to be approved by GDS, and then all other things should should go through their dining website. And just so you know, all events that take place on the seventh floor are contractually obligated to use gourmet dining. So if you're planning a big gala and you want to have, maybe a certain cultural food that GDS can't provide, then you need to have it in a different space because that is in agreement with gourmet dining. And then any events involving cooking or grilling need to be coordinated through dining services as well because fire safety has to be involved. I'm going to briefly touch on this, but we sometimes see a large number of requests come in for students wanting to have events that have animals. And so if you want to have, therapy dogs come to campus, they have to be therapy dogs. It just can't be Fido at home or your dog that you love or your cat that you love a lot. You need to clean up after them, and it also has to be in some sort of closed off or fenced in area, and it has to be outdoors or outside of the student center, and they need to be properly insured. Next, I want to cover food sales and fundraising. So, bake sales are only allowed in the Student Center, University Hall, and Dixon Hall. This information has changed, and so I hope you are paying attention. But any bake sales in the Student Center lobby are, if you want to have a bake sale in the Student Center, you have to book STCT1C04. Those are the tables that are parallel to the door across from the elevator. They're not the ones along the rail. In conjunction with working with gourmet dining, they have asked that there's only one bake sale at a time. So again, you may need to plan accordingly as our office will manage those requests. If you want to sell hot food, so if you wanted to sell empanadas, for example, you're only allowed to sell hot food in University Hall and Dixon Hall. All other things are free game in the Student Center. And then just briefly going to touch on this, but if your organization is going to do maybe like a bingo where you're raising money, you need to apply for a gambling license through the state of New Jersey. That is a New Jersey policy. That is not a Montclair State University policy. It's not that hard to obtain one, but we just want to make that aware that some groups do look to do things like this. So keep this in the back of your mind. Very briefly, want to touch on posting policies. So all posting materials must be stamped at CSI for approval. This is for physical flyers. Anything you're doing digitally, you can ultimately do whatever you want, freedom of speech. You can also do that on our campus. We just ask for them to be approved so the university has a record to know kind of what's happening. Flyers can be posted for up to 2 weeks at a time. And we do that partially because people aren't paying attention really beyond 2 weeks. You can post in several materials across campus. If you want to post in the residence halls, you have to come to us first for the stamp, and then you need to speak to the individual community director. And we have a little form that you fill out that just kind of lets you know where you can post. We don't allow like posting on cars, things like that. And generally speaking, the rule of thumb is one poster per flyer or flyer per bulletin board. Next, I want to talk about check-in. So you all as organizations at Montclair State University are required to maintain attendance at all events. If you look down on your screen, you'll see this Campus Labs event check-in. If you do not have this app downloaded, I highly encourage you to download it. We are going to be really cracking down on this moving forward. It is a university expectation that we are keeping accurate track record on Engage. And so you're going to want your e-board to have access to this. Don't scan this QR code. That will not take you to this. That's a separate thing. But we ask that all groups use the Campus Labs check-in app to scan in event passes. This links directly to Engage. You can input an event code, which I will go through when we go through the Engage tutorial in just a few moments. So again, encourage your whole e-board to download it, and anyone with it can have it. So even if you have some volunteers at a program, they can download this and help you check people in. I do want to talk briefly about check-in and how it relates to CSI. So events that meet certain criteria require staffing from our office. And so when you all start to input your event requests, Malachi in our office, we look through all of them. There's going to be thousands of requests that come in, and there's only a handful of us, but we review every single one individually. And then as events meet certain criteria, we pull them for a list, and then we assign staffing. So this is never something you need to worry about. If our staff is going to be there, we will make sure that your organization gets emailed, so you're kind of aware of what's going on. Some things, generally speaking, that require a CSI presence is any event on the seventh floor, major events in the student center ballrooms, anything taking place in maybe a parking lot or pool. Some other things we look at is the time of day. So primarily speaking, this only applies to events that take place between like 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. If there's a fee charged, and then depending on your occupancy. So a lot of times we have student groups say like, oh, we're having an event and we're expecting, maybe 100 people to come, but it's during common hour. Does not apply. This really only applies for those like evening events, and that's partially in conjunction to the way we work with University Police. And if CSI is ever present at your event, someone from your executive board has to be present with them at all times. So just keep that in mind. Our staff is there to do their job, but you also need to be there to support them. Our staff and how they work with you and your organizations, they serve as the liaison between university police and student organizations. They will help you with the check-in. We know that event planning can be really stressful, and so they help maintain occupancy and safety. As you're booking spaces, it is so, so, so important for you to be really cognizant of how many people you're expecting and what you're anticipating. Because once occupancy is reached, there's no other adjustments that can be made. So sometimes we see this happen where a student group will say, oh, we're expecting 200. We're going to plan for 200. And then if 300 show up, we are going to send 100 people away. So you really need to be cognizant, think about what you're doing. Our staff is also going to make sure that an event concludes on time. So that means if you booked the seventh floor from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., that means at 9:45, our student staff is going to turn the lights on, your DJ is going to turn off the music, and we need to clear that space out 15 minutes before. So keep that in mind as you're planning that. Our staff also, when they arrive, they'll always ask for the event coordinator or president, where they will reiterate this information. And our student staff will never, ever, 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 ever handle money collection. So if you're collecting money at the door, you'll absolutely need additional staff to help support that. As I mentioned before, I'm going to touch upon this briefly, but university police. So depending on the time, place, and type of event, our university requires a university police presence may be required. Some things we tend to look at, again, is an occupancy of over 100 people, where the event is taking place, if there's a DJ, if there's money being collected, and if it's taking place in the evening. So these are all things we want you to take note of. If you have any questions ever, 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 ever about university police, contact CSI. You can email myself, you can email Student Org Events, you can email Malachi. You do not and should not be going to university police. And the reason we ask for that is we work with university police 24/7. Sometimes it's hard for them to manage emails that maybe come in randomly. And so email us and we can answer any questions that you have. If UPD is assigned, your organization will be sent an email with the details and an estimated bill. If an officer is scheduled to be at an event, it cannot start until the officer arrives, and they are going to arrive at the scheduled start time. So again, as you're booking your events and thinking about what you need, really, really be cognizant. We see this happen sometimes where a student group will say something starts at 6, but it doesn't really start until 7. And that's wasting an hour of everybody's time. So if there's any major changes that need to happen, especially after university police is involved, you need to contact us immediately. We've had this happen before where some organizations, if there's multiple instances where they're canceling and not communicating with us, we may revoke room booking privileges. This is just a brief slide to refer back to let you know there's a cost. So the student government covers the cost of our RSO's programs, and then Greek life, they tend to sort of, work amongst themselves to figure this out. But y'all can see how it can add up, right? So a 2-hour event estimate, again, depending on the number of people. So it's about 1 officer per 100 people, times the number of hours the event is equals how much it could cost. So another thing I want you to be cognizant of is really think about your occupancy. Sometimes we base people off of 100. Sometimes we'll have student groups say, oh, we're expecting 250. If you tell us 250, we're going to err up on the side of caution and go for 300. And if as that event gets closer and you're like, really, it's going to be 150, tell us that. We can make those adjustments, but we would rather overestimate and then accommodate than necessarily need to try to add people at the last minute. Again, this is only for estimation purposes. If you ever have any questions about UPD, please email me. If you're canceling an event, email Student Org Events as soon as possible. If we constantly are finding you're not utilizing the spaces you're saying you are, you may lose your room booking privileges. And once CSI has been notified, we then encourage you to delete the event from Engage so people won't continue to RSVP. Please don't wait until the last minute to cancel. And then just remember, space is really limited. So the more spaces you're holding or not utilizing, you're taking them away from other people. So please keep that in mind. On the screen, you can see a simple example of maybe how to cancel an event. just send a quick little email saying, hi, so-and-so, this is the date, time, and we have to cancel. It happens, we understand, and that's more than okay. Some brief information we want to give you. So, as we said at the start of the presentation, room bookings take a minimum of 2 weeks for space request approval. And that means that, again, as I said before, room bookings are going to open up on August 22nd. And 2 weeks after that, which is September, oh God, 22nd is September 5th. We may not have gotten through everything. The first day for student programs is September 12th, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But just keep that in mind that you're going to submit a bunch of requests. Also, there's almost 200 organizations fighting for space on campus. And so just really, really, really be cognizant of that there's going to be thousands of requests that come in and only a handful of us processing them. For our student government groups on this call, the SGA requires 28 days minimum for any financial paperwork. Um, and then we just want you to be mindful. So as you're planning programs, think about what materials do you need? What volunteers do you need? What co-sponsors are you working with? Your flyers, your social media plan. Really think about those things. I'll highlight this next part as we go through Engage in just a moment, but really be cognizant of your setup time, your actual time, and how much time it's going to take to break things down. And you always want to leave the space better than you found it because we don't want to cause more problems for people throughout the day. Um, if you ever have any questions, we really encourage you to reach out to Student Org Events. That email is monitored by multiple people within our office. So occasionally I'll get an email, or Julia will get an email, or Malachi or Sidra will get one. But if you send it here, many of us have access to this, and chances are you'll get a faster response. We have a policy webpage I encourage you to check out. This training did not cover everything. There's a lot of pieces that need to be covered. And so I would encourage you to also familiarize yourself with some of our other policies that were not covered. If you know where the massage chairs are on campus, in the student center on that first floor, our office is like 5 steps away from there. So the next time you treat yourself to a massage, pop by our office. We'd love to see you. Generally speaking, our office is open Monday through Friday from at least 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., sometimes longer. But there's always some sort of presence there. Um, I'm going to very quickly touch upon some important dates, and then we're going to transition over to just quickly showing you through Engage. So again, I'm not going to talk through all of these things, but I really want to reiterate a few things. So your organization will not be able to book any spaces on campus before August 22nd at 12 p.m. You also will not be able to book anything until after you complete our assessment. So hopefully today.
Communication?
Yeah.
Okay.
I need
Yeah.
somebody to mute. Adriana Bailey, please mute. Thank you. So August 22nd, as I was saying, is the first day for program requests. If you try to submit anything before that, it'll be denied. You will not be able to book any spaces until you complete that assessment. So later today, if not first thing tomorrow morning, you will be sent an email. Make sure somebody from your organization fills it out. You all can. Some of you may have multiple people on the call. That's fine. It's an assessment. It helps our office improve the training, but you will not be able to book anything until at least one person has done it. The Student Involvement Fair, you can find the link if you have not registered for that yet on Engage. On CSI's page, but that'll be on September 3rd in conjunction with Red Hawk Day. The first day for student organization programming is September 12th. So that means you cannot book anything before September 12th. Your deadline to renew your Engage portal is September 20th. The last day to submit any new requests is November 4th. And then the last day for student organization programming is December 11th. That's some information about important dates. I am now going to shift over to Engage really quick and show you a couple things. So very briefly, I'm going to show you, we have a little demo page we use. So I'm going to go here. This says event tests. This is a little sandbox page we use. So you should be able to see whatever page you're president of, involved in, you should see a manage organization button. If you do not see this, chances are you may not have access and either need to check with somebody else on your e-board first, or potentially you need to get in contact with last year's e-board. If you can't do either of those things, you can reach out to our office and we can help you in that. But you always need to be, when you're doing things as part of a club or organization, in the manage view. So I'm going to switch to the manage view. It's going to load here for a second. I'm going to click roster. So this is a very, very frequently asked question we get asked in our office about adding people to the roster. So maybe you're part of an organization. The first thing you got to do is you have to be part of the page. So you cannot have permissions on a page unless you have general member access. So I could go in here and then decide to make myself, I'm going to switch from the campus advisor to the president. As simple as that. You all can do that for anyone within your organization and give them different permissions. That is how the roster feature functions. So you just go to that blue pencil, click it, and then add that permission. The next part, this part is really important. I want to show you all. We're going to talk about events and space booking a little bit. So just waiting for it to load. So you would go over to events. Again, I'm in the manage view. It's going to give it a second to load. You should see a blue button here that says create event. And you're going to see a bunch of information here. So this is where you would enter in some information. I'm just going to say this is bingo. You can pick a theme. It helps people find other information. This is where you would put your event description. If you wanted to list any co-hosts, you could do that here. For all folks on the call, please pay attention to this part. So in order to book the space, you have to hit add reservation request, and then you're going to input some information here. What you put in here is so, 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 so important. So for the sake of this presentation, I'm just going to pick time that I know that spaces will be available. So I hit add reservation requests. I'm going to say August 24th. I'm looking for 12 to 1. If I put in here setup time and I put in 15 minutes for setup time, that means the system is going to look for spaces that are showing as available starting from 11:45 until 1 o'clock. If I put in teardown time and I put 15 minutes, that means it's going to be, again, looking for things starting at 11:45 until 1:15 p.m. So this is why it's really important that you input information. We see this happen sometimes where a student group says, all right, I'm going to book a classroom. I'm going to hit 8:30 is my start time, but oh yeah, it's going to take us 15 minutes to set up. If you go and say, I want to book a classroom, and you say 8:30, and you put that 15 minutes in, it's now going to show rooms available at 8:15. And we're going to deny your request outright because classrooms are not available until after 8:30 p.m. So if you did really, really feel like you need that 15 minutes in advance, which again, classrooms come as is, the appropriate way to book this would be to book that start time as 8:45, because this is now going to show spaces available from 8:30 until 9:45. So please, please, please keep that in mind, as Sabrina Carpenter would say. So again, for this presentation, I'm just going to hit 12 to 1 o'clock. Again, it's in minutes. So again, do you need an hour? Think about that. And I'm going to hit browse available rooms. I can search by building, and I can also search by different requests. We recommend search by building. So again, you can review those training slides and go, okay, what's available based on what buildings I'm looking at? For the sake of this, I'm going to pick the student center. Every building on campus has a 4-digit room code. If there's a code you don't recognize, chances are it's part of the Bloomfield campus. So just keep that in the back of your mind that Bloomfield is also bookable. So you see different options here. So depending on what I click on, it's going to show me different information. Again, for the sake of this training, I'm going to hit the Student Center Underground and hit add to request. And now it's holding that for me. Nobody else can gain access to that. So it's holding that for me. No one else can cause any problems here. Event visibility, public. If you hit the public, that means anybody can see it. They don't need to use the authentication to see it. If you hit students and staff at Montclair State University Engage, that means that only people logged into Engage will be able to see it, or they'll need to log into Engage to view it. Organization members, this may apply for maybe e-board members or things like that, volunteer opportunities. So just keep that in mind. We've also added some new categories. We've done this as a way to better help students find information. So you'll see here we've added large scale, medium scale, small scale. Small scale events we kind of dictate is about 30 or less. Medium is about 30 to 100, and then large is 100 plus. There's also drop by. There's also, and you can specify a couple different. So you say it's a small scale drop by program, and maybe we're going to have some free food. And then you can continue through these prompts. You can add in information about RSVPing. You can add in an assessment afterwards if you want. Um, you can add a photo if you want. I'm just going to skip this. And then you continue to go through. I'm going to continue to custom fields to show you what this will look like. I'm going to say that it's an in-person event. And this whole form is built with logic. So the more information you put, the more it's going to populate. Here you would then specify the space. I can include the number of people I'm anticipating. Is it co-sponsored? Will there be a DJ, guest speakers, selling tickets in advance? So again, I'm just going to hit the student center to show you an example. I'm going to say, you know what, I'm expecting about 50 people. And then here it's going to give me this information. So this part here is to help our scheduling team start to figure out what are you looking for. So maybe I want that underground space and I want it to be classroom style. I'm going to put that here. That's going to let the scheduling team start to understand what I'm looking for. Maybe you need a custom setup. Again, who to meet with here. I'm just going to hit banquet style for now. Scroll down, no stage, no podium. I'm going to say I do want a microphone and maybe include your technology here. If you don't give us that, your room setup may have to come as is. I'm going to hit next. Then you can kind of specify here more information. So maybe I want 5 round tables, 2 rectangle tables, and I want 25 chairs, right? And again, the more information you put in, the more this helps us. These are a bunch of acknowledgements you need to make. I will click off all of these. And then let's say I made a mistake and I want to change something. You can go back in at any point and click this. I'm going to send it through the review process. Again, this does not mean anything unless I hit submit. If I walk away right now, it's going to be stuck in limbo. I'm going to hit submit. It's going to take a moment to process. Something I really want to encourage our groups, as you're booking spaces, it's so important that you are cognizant of what you're inputting because the more the less information you give us, the more tracking down we have to do, and that might hurt your program from getting approved. It does take a few seconds for this to process, but I do want to show you one more thing as soon as it's done creating that reservation. So I see that my bingo is in here. It's not been approved yet. You can see this under your submissions, which lives up in the top here, but I'm going to click on this for an example. So again, I can see all the information here. I'm going to switch to a different view so you can see what I'm talking about for a second. So I click on this. It would get approved or denied, again, depending on if it's available. I'm going to go back and show you one more piece of Engage, and then you will almost all be on your way, folks. Come on, here we go. So I mentioned before, there's that check-in app. So once you create an event on Engage, I'll pick on CSI for an example. So once you create an event and you can see it here, okay, you want to get that code, you hit Manage Event. And that event code is going to be populated right here. So you would use that check-in app. This would be your access code, and you can give this access code to anybody. They'll scan those people in through the check-in app, and then there's a live record to know exactly who checked in, at what time, and then we can run really cool reports and data. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and